So let's get into it. We have a jury. Durk, jury of 16, 12 deliberating, 4 alternates, has been seated. Openings did not happen today, back on Monday. We kind of called that anyways, and I did say that I would prefer it to be on Monday because, yeah. Anyways, I'll thread some of the key takeaways from the jury selection, even though she didn't write key takeaways, but I said that. Anyways, as a reminder, the public was in a separate courtroom than the jurors, defendants, and attorneys today. Juror 4, the student who said he listened to Durk's music, was excused by the government. Damn. Juror 26, a woman who says she volunteers with the Neighborhood Justice Program, where she helps determine alternative consequences for first-time offenders instead of sending them to prison, i.e. community service. She said the work was greatly rewarded for her, and she really wants to serve on this case. She also says she wants to know what the sentencing would be if convicted. She definitely was going to get the hell off of there. The government ain't having that. Juror 29 said reasonable doubt is powerful, but doesn't always end with results that are fair. She referenced a case where she felt the evidence was straightforward, but because of how the evidence was handled, it provided reasonable doubt. She was dismissed by the defense. I think she's talking about the Karen Reed shit. To be honest, that's what it sounded like to me. The jurors have been selected. We didn't hear much from, but I do have notes from 2 of them. 21. When asked if she believes law enforcement would be more or less likely to tell the truth versus other people, she said, I would think they would be more likely to tell the truth than other people because of their oath. She is on the jury. Yeah, hell no. No, your moral oath. We literally just seen a damn cop lie and say this little dude had a gun on him, and the whole entire time, they lied. His gun was in his pocket, but they lied on that more. They say he pointed a gun at this damn cop. You point a gun at a cop, you're going to be shot. Just flat out, bro. Unless you are... Yeah, I ain't even do all that. But anyways, juror 17 has served on 2 juries before, and when asked if she has any frustrations from those, she said she was frustrated that there was a lack of evidence in the second trial, and sometimes you have opinions and you know something occurred, but it can't be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. She later explained that in that case, a person went behind a pole, so the evidence couldn't show exactly what happened, so there was reasonable doubt. When asked if that bothered her, she said slightly. Juror 17 is on the jury. 42 is on the jury. And I have written down that they are a full-time student, different than juror 4. Damn, that sucks. I'm not sure how old or young they are since we were not in the same room. Based on commentary from the attorneys, 44 expressed that they've only understood about 40% of what they've been hearing because English isn't their first language. Defense wanted them off, but government expressed that they should stay. Because typically those people come from conservative backgrounds and they racist as shit. I would have wanted his ass off or her ass off any goddamn ways. Judge said during sidebar, the person seemed to be more confused by the legal concepts versus the English language itself. O'Connor argued since there will be a lot of slang and not standard English being used, she's concerned about the juror. Judge said he also doesn't understand a lot of what's being said. Not as a slight to the defendants, and could be because of his age, but basically not understanding slang isn't enough to excuse. 4-4 is an alternate. That's some bullshit, but whatever the hell, bro. I think that's it for male right there. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. After the break, government agreed to stipulate that 18 should be dismissed. Also, this was done outside the presence of the jurors. It was an attorney and judge going over questionnaire responses who they would like to strike. Jurors will be joining for voir dire in about 5 minutes. Now, I'm going to show you 2 perspectives, one from somebody I don't really approve of. We ain't no ops or nothing like that. I just, he shade me. I shade him. It is what it is. He probably going to play deaf, dumb, and blind, be like, I ain't never seen your shit before a day in your life. We going to see. But it's no static. It's no problem. I want to harm that man. But let's go with Mo's side of what he said, because he is an actual lawyer reporting on this stuff, even though, he has gotten a lot of things wrong. Roll it.
Just got out of the Durk trial. Opening statements will not be happening today. They were planned to have opening statements go on today. Instead, opening statements will be Monday. Today, what we did have was a jury was seated, the voir dire process, defense attorneys, the government asking the jurors questions. You probably saw the report, the one juror who said, just by looking at them, I can tell that they would be guilty. What was really unfortunate is when the juror said that, the judge was like, yes, a lot of Americans feel that way. I was like, wait, judge, what the hell? He basically co-signed. Further to the whole issue of young people on juries, there was a college student. He's like, my classes are starting. That's going to be a reason not to be somebody put on a jury. You're going to never have young people on jury. Finling, who, he does a great job. I mean, I learned something as a lawyer from watching him today. What he does when he's questioning the jurors is he uses an opportunity to kind of set up his whole case. And it's ABC, always be closing. So Drew's not really just asking questions to expose your bias, but he's also asking questions to set you up for the way he wants you to see this case. He's gonna have a couple themes in this case. Look, Lil Durk is a world-renowned artist with all these fancy cars and nice houses, and the whole world knows him as the voice. And I think where Drew is going with that is he's so wildly successful, he wouldn't be involved in any of this stuff. And through, Drew's gonna weave those themes into his jury questioning. Part of that theme will be showing Durk to be separate and in his own little world. I think it's gonna be important for the defense to be careful that they don't undercut themselves by defending the case as kind of a united team, which kind of happens at some points where the defense attorneys defer to Drew Finling like he's going to carry all the water, whereas they kind of need to keep things separate. Once they picked all the jurors, the judge gave the standard instructions, swearing them in, walking them through the... As I was listening to it, one point that did come out that I should clarify, there's two different conspiracy to commit stalking charges. There's one to stalk Quando Rondo. There's another to stalk the person who actually got killed. And that's very important because the stalking charge of the person who actually got killed carries a way higher penalty than the stalking charge against Quando Rondo. So you could have a situation where there's one charge that Durk gets, stalking Quando or conspiracy to stalk Quando, and it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world in terms of an absolutely crushing criminal sentence. It ended with the judge giving the jurors their standard instruction about, you know, looking only at the evidence. I love when I hear the judges say this, because he's like, I need you to disregard your beliefs, what you like, what you don't like, somebody's age, somebody's race, somebody's religion, your prior experiences, essentially everything that people look at the lens of the world through. He's like, forget all of that and be an impartial juror. Opening statements will begin Monday morning, 9 a.m. Stay tuned.
All right, so he makes some points, but once again, we already knew about the second murder for hire stalking charge BS, the second stalking charge that resulted in death. We know about that. And what the government is actually doing, they're not really tripping off of the little pop shit like they're trying to pretend. They're more worried about getting the stalking charge for Quando Rondo. That's what they're doing. That's their whole play. But the judge did some shit that, I'm going to be fair, I don't like none of this. And when I don't like this shit, bruh, it means something. Let's go.
All right, so I'm outside the courthouse. It is now officially day 2 of the Lil Durk trial, and we're going through jury selection. We just heard some really, really interesting stuff about different jurors, different people that are being put across. And there was a very interesting exchange between the judge and Dee Dee's lawyer. Now, Dee Dee's lawyer has been very vocal over the last few sessions. Obviously, he is separate to the, alleged dream team of Drew Findling, Brian Steele that Durk's putting forward. And it seems like on a lot of motions, all the lawyers are going to be joined up unless they disagree or they opt out of being included in each other's motions. But Dee Dee's lawyer has really been going hard for Dee Dee separately, and he asked a lot of interesting questions, and he kind of followed up on this very controversial issue of whether this, gang evidence is being allowed to brought up, whether the jury is going to be allowed to be asked about the gang connections, things like that. And what was really interesting is that he had a little bit of a tense back and forth with the government, basically asking, look, is the connection, basically he was like, look, the court hasn't authorized gang info. Are we really even allowed to ask them about their thoughts on gang situations and, the role that gangs are or aren't allowed to play in this trial? Obviously, it's been very controversial, but the judge has made it clear this is not a gang case, it's not a gang murder. He's going to allow only limited discussion of gangs, specifically limited to, the motive of King Von being allegedly a very senior ranking member of the Black Disciples, and the motive for revenge being avenging King Von, who was allegedly a prolific gangster in the Black Disciples, but that the murder wasn't necessarily gang related. They weren't at war with the Rolling 60s in Savannah, Georgia that Quando's a member of, and the gang membership being a tie between the different members of OTF, and how they'd grown up in gangs, how they knew each other. The judge made a very interesting metaphor, which was a little bit spicy, but also it kind of made everybody understand exactly what was going on. And this received a few little gasps and tuts in the courtroom. A few people were like, so he basically said, look, gang's going to be allowed to be discussed in terms of the connection between the defendants and the motive for avenging Von. He said, look, it's being alleged that OTF is a gang. And I allowed the discussion of OTF as a gang to be discussed in February. There's debate about whether this is a musical collective or a gang. He said that basically King Von's membership of OTF and a leader in the Black Disciples that is what makes there to be an expectation of revenge. And then what he said next was crazy. I'm not going to lie. He said, look, there wouldn't be the same expectation of revenge for Von if rather than OTF they were all in the Boy Scouts, or if they were a chapter of the NAACP. Now, some people were kind of offended by maybe the reference of that organization in this context, but I got the point that he was making. He was basically saying, look, if OTF was, you know what I'm saying, only the Boy Scouts, they probably wouldn't expect the revenge, a brutal, you know, broad daylight murder in revenge for the murder of a member of the Boy Scouts. So they said that the government can use the gang affiliations to argue that there's a greater expectation of revenge. I don't know if the Boy Scouts are really sliding like that. I'm nearly falling into this this pond here. That's crazy. But anyway, that is the latest.
Wording. It's a pain in the fucking ass.
This is what really annoys the hell out of me, and it must be said. There are too many individuals like this individual who thinks to themselves, oh, this is gang shit, aka the goddamn judge, right? And here's where the issue for me lies. He's saying this shit as though he, one, can't understand or grasp these people wanting to harm people who they feel hurt their people. You're acting like you won't succumb to anger. You're acting like these things don't exist. So when he's saying shit like, oh, the Boy Scouts when the gang members, man, shut up, man. This is the shit I'm talking about. And it's like the old school way is literally just the last generation way. The lies that are told from generation to generation of how great they were, or how understanding, never exist. And I think Durk ultimately gets a W today because you had to have somebody who is young enough to decipher between the real and the BS, because the older people are stuck in their ways. You have to remember, a generation before, having a bunch of tattoos was a bad thing. Having a bunch of tattoos was not considered a good thing. The last generation will tell you if you had tattoos, you weren't getting a mother flipping job. Just gonna keep it authentic with y'all. So when all this little shit that be coming out and all this stuff, oh, the judge is gay and all that shit, nobody give a damn. And he's still an old white man. You give a damn about his sexuality. And so what? Oh, well, he's progressive because he's... Man, bro, listen. We can go pull up clips of old gay white men being racist as hell. That don't mean shit. Then his bias is starting to seep out because he's talking about, oh, she can stay on because she doesn't really understand the slang and I don't. No, you can understand correlation. She can't. You can understand that Durk has a lot of kids and he has a girl that has, I think, a kid or two. So they like the goddamn Brady Bunch. That person won't know none of that shit. So it's not about knowing slang. It's about being able to correlate this shit. It's about being able to use examples. If I'm somebody who is essentially 40 years old, I'm saying it like, yo, this could be somebody from Friends and all of this shit, and Ross died or something like that. That person won't know any of this shit. But we'll see the jurors on Monday and see how this shit works itself out. I am beyond curioso to find out how this shit goes in the opening statements. I'm glad it didn't happen today. I am glad. I think it would have been horrendous had it happened today. And some of you will disagree, and I will understand those who disagree. But if you decide to disagree, let me help you out here emphatically. They would have sat there, and I'm guaranteeing you somebody would have looked up something. Curiosity gets the best of everybody. If I was a juror, I don't give a shit what anybody says. Justin say, hey, don't go home and look up the case and all of this shit. Boy, man, F out of here. Get the F out of here. That ain't how that shit go, man. And you're talking about being there for what, 2 to 3 weeks? 2 to 3 goddamn weeks? Man, no. So, y'all let me know y'all thoughts on this one. I gave y'all 3 different aspects Love Mel. Y'all know I'm one of her biggest fans over here, so make sure y'all follow her page. But if you can, man, hit that like button like you like something. Listen, we need the likes on this shit because at the end of the day, if y'all want me to pop up, bruh, I ain't asking for no cash apps or nothing like that. Maybe I'll do this shit for the next 2 days or if I decide to go there and let y'all help me out or whatever. But if you can, man, comment your thoughts and hit the like button. That's all we're asking over here. Nothing too much. But, boy, we got another story to get to soon. So I'll be dropping something in 2 hours for y'all. But golly. QCP, man, it's looking bad, bro. It's looking real bad. And I'm about to reach out to somebody, but it might be over. It might be over. Click right here to keep up with that, or keep right here to hit the playlist and keep up with everything. I will catch you on the next one. Oh, members! Y'all better check that community post, bro. There's videos out there for y'all that we're going to launch when it gets to 20 of them. I'll catch you on the next one.